We need to start telling ourselves a different story. We need to start changing the script to our own story, because the one that we've been telling ourselves all these years isn't inspiring. It is not encouraging. It doesn't give us the tools to build a better life for ourselves. It makes us feel needy, helpless, and dependent. And the worst part of it all is that it is all a lie. Personally, I think that we've been playing the blaming card for far too long. And this is the time for us to change it. Because if we don't, in the next 50 to 100 years, we will still be singing the same old songs of suffering, slavery, and poverty. And that needs to change. Now the question becomes, how do we write this story? A story that is not just going to inspire us and encourage us. A story that is not just going to make us feel worthy and proud of ourselves, of who we are and what we stand for, but a story that is going to give us the tools to develop ourselves and our continent, and also to help us create a better world for the next generation to come. Stories that when they read, it will inspire them to do more, because these stories will serve as the blueprint for them to do more, because they've seen it and they've heard it. Now, why do we have to change the script to our own story? And we need to understand that stories are very important in our society, because they are structured ways that we share values, ideas, experiences, and lessons. Now we can share them through words or, images, sound, or even by action. And they help us to connect and make sense of the world that we live in. Now, every story has a purpose intended for its audience. Now, we sometimes tell stories to remember. When it comes to history and culture, we tell stories of our history and culture to preserve it. We also tell stories to connect. Sometimes when you hear people's story, you tend to feel their emotions. You tend to connect with them, to walk in their shoes, to feel their emotions. We also tell stories to teach people lessons, because most lessons come from stories, or stories have lessons about life and choices, whatever it is. Stories contains lessons. Sometimes also we tell stories to inspire. When you hear a story of someone who has done something amazing, it inspires you to also do the same. And the last thing is we tell stories to shape our identity, because the stories that we tell about ourselves, of who we are and where we come from and what we represent, shapes our identity. But the most important thing about a story is how it is being told, because based on how you tell the story will determine whether it will serve its purpose or do something else. You might have a powerful story, but if you don't communicate it well, it will produce a different result than what it was intended for. Now let's come to the African story. Now we all know the stories that we are hearing are not stories that we wrote ourselves. These are stories that somebody wrote about us. Our own story wasn't written by us. It was written by someone else. And that is a problem, because anybody can decide to write anything about you. Whether or not that is true, it doesn't matter. Whatever he thinks of you, he writes about you. And that we cannot allow. And these are the stories that we are sharing in our schools, in our societies. These are the stories that we believe, and we cannot allow that. We need to change this. And number two, we need to understand that all these stories that we are hearing are lies. You know that, and I know that. They are lies, but we still believe in these stories, and we still share it to our children, our siblings, in our communities, and in our schools, which is a problem. Now we need to note this also, that the way we are telling our stories now is doing us more harm than good. Because most of the times when we see our stories, it's all about the slavery, the colonization, and all the wicked things that they did to us. And I ask myself, why are we telling these stories? We don't like them, so why are we telling it? And most of the time, the feeling that you get from watching this video is resentment, hate towards the West. And I always say that hatred won't do us any good. It is not going to change anything. It is not going to do anything. Whatever they did in the past is in the past. We just need to learn from it and make better decisions now. Feeling hatred against them won't do anything. It won't do us any good. Because Nelson Mandela said, hating someone is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It's not going to work. So when you hear the stories and the way people say it, it makes you feel hatred for the worst. And you can see it in videos. How people talk when they meet the whites, what they say, the West, what they say, and all those things. It is not right. that is not the way forward. At least in my own perspective, we need to change the way we tell the stories, because we need to understand that there are other countries that share the same story or the same history or a similar history like Africa. For example, Singapore, they were also colonized, but look at where they are now. They looked at their past and saw that, hey, this is what we went through. Fine. Now we've been able to break free and we are here. What do we do to move forward? And look at where they are. And that is where we need to go. That is the direction in which we need to go. Instead of telling these stories or our stories in a way that will create hatred in people, we need to tell our stories to inspire people that regardless of whatever we've been through in the past, we've been able to prevail and come to this point, and we are still here standing strong. So the resilience that we built through the struggle should be channeled in things that will bring us growth and development, things that will bring us progress, rather than telling these stories and then making it feel like we need to hate the white and we need to do these things. In my own perspective, this won't do us any good and we need to change it. And that's why we need to change the script. We need to change the script to our story, because it wasn't written by us and it is all a lie. And the way we are telling the stories is doing us more harm than good. You understand? And nowadays, the stories that we hear even doesn't make us feel worthy of ourselves. We don't love ourselves. We think that we are doomed. We think that we are cursed. It's all coming from stories that somebody else wrote about you and I, and we need to change it. Now, the next thing that we are going to look at is how we can change this, how we can change the script to our story. Now, we need to understand this, that the history that we read is of the lives and the deeds of people who have lived in the past. Those who did something with their lives, those who contributed to society. Those are the stories that we read, because it's not everybody that we hear about. It is only those who did something relevant in the past that we read about. And just as we read history, we are also writing history. Like Les Brown said, history is being read, but also being written by people with imagination. And if we are going to write a different script to our own story, then we need to focus on now, what we do now, not be here and be focusing about the past. We need to focus on now, what we do now, because whatever we do now with our lives will be the history that the next generation will be reading. Now we need to ask ourselves, what story will they be reading? Is it the same story of blaming that we'll be sitting there, stories that, we in this generation, most of us didn't go through the hardship. Most of us didn't go through it. But we are sitting there blaming instead of we to wake up, because all the struggles and the number of people who died, the suffering and the fights, the wars that they went through just to bring us here. Instead of us to look at that and push forward to create a better world, we are still sitting here complaining about something. Even they at that time who were in those times weren't complaining, because if they complained, they wouldn't have fought for independence. They wouldn't have gone through all the struggles that they went through, the imprisonment and all those suffering. So we in this time need to get out of that blame mindset and start taking actions, because the more you talk about it and do nothing about it, it won't bring any change to you. Feeling hatred about the West won't do anything good to you. We need to change this thing, and we need to focus on now, what we do now with our lives. So that is how we change the story, because this history is just about people and events and things that people did. And if we are going to write a new script, then we need to look at what we do now with our lives, what we focus on now, today, not tomorrow, not yesterday, because whatever you do today, tomorrow, it will be in the past, and then it will become the history. And then you ask yourself, what story will that be? Will it be a story of inspiration or discouragement? Will it be a story of blaming or empowerment? And that is what we need to talk about. That is what we need to focus on right now, because whatever we do now is what is going to determine the history that the next generation, our children and our children's children, will be reading. We need to keep that in mind. Now, the second point in how we can change the script is that we need to filter our language. And when I say our language, the things that we say about ourselves, the language that we use about ourselves. You understand? We need to take out all this language. When we are teaching our children, instead of us to teach them the truth, We rather tell them the lie, because most of the time, if you look at parenting, they focus too much on punishing the kid than teaching the kid the right thing. So you realize that the parents will just punish the kid but will forget to teach the kid what to do. And then you see that the kid will do the same thing again, forgetting that it was just punishment he gave to the kid without teaching him or her the right thing to do. And that is the same mistake that we are doing. We know that these theories are lies, and we are still telling our kids that, hey, I know this is a lie, but I'm telling you anyways. No, we need to rather tell them the truth and forget about the lie, because the more we tell them the truth and we keep the lies from them, they will not know about it, because they don't know. We need to feed them the truth. We need to feed them the right information, and don't tell them the lie, because if you tell them this is the truth, then everything else they hear is a lie. But if you mix the truth or the lie, or we make a mistake and tell them the lie instead, then they will not get the opportunity to know which one is the truth. And looking at how much the lies have consumed our society, they might grow up to believe it. And that is going to be a problem. That's why I said, if we don't do it now, in the next 50 to 100 years, we will still be singing the old songs of poverty and, suffering and slavery. And we cannot have that. The world is changing, and we need to change with it. And we need to filter our language, the things that we say about ourselves. You are not cursed. You are blessed. You are not ugly. You are beautiful. The skin that you have is not just color. It is health. You understand? It is health. You need to understand that the things that you can endure with the skin that you have, they cannot. And they know it. And you need to be proud of yourself. You can't be doing these things. You can't be saying these things about yourself and be telling your children the same thing. And that breeds hate in them. Like I was saying before, we need to change. We need to filter our language. The informations that are good, we need to talk about it. The truth, we need to talk about it. Only talk about the truth and forget about the lies. We know it. Yes, we do. But the newer generation, we need to give them the right information and eliminate the lies, so that all they will know is the truth. And that is going to help change, the script in our society. Because then when they grow up and they are going to tell their kids also, they will tell them the truth. And that is how we spread and change our own story, the script to our own story. And also, I would just want to make a reference to a movie. You see, if you have ever watched Avengers Endgame, when, the last scene when Thanos was fighting the Avengers, he made a statement and he said that now I know he knows what he has to do, that he's going to wipe the world clean, everybody in it, and then create a new one with the stones they've collected for him. Teaming life, knowing not what it has lost, but only what it has been given. You understand? And that's why I'm saying that we need to forget about the lies and teach them only the truth. Because if they know only the truth, they won't know anything else. Now, I'm not saying that we need to forget about our history, but we need to feed them the right information first. That should be the foundation. And then when they grow up and the foundation is set for them, then we feed them, oh, this is what happened. This is what happened. But this is where we've been able to get to. And we need to be proud of ourselves. And that will serve as the blueprint for them to do more. And that is what we need to keep in our heads. That is what we need to be doing. You understand? We need to wipe all the lies from our language. We need to wipe all these things from our society and then feed it with the truth. And then we keep on sharing the truth, and everybody is going to do well. Okay? And then we change the stories that we tell ourselves, our own script. Now, the last point that I'm going to talk about on how we can change the script is that we need to make our stories reflect in our lives. Our lifestyle should reflect the stories that we tell, because so many times we've seen that a lot of people say things about Africa, that they are proud and things, but then if you look at their lives, they don't like Africa, because they will say, I'm proud, but they don't want to live in Africa. You understand? They are not proud of certain things. They say that our leaders are corrupt and things. You need to understand there are so many things at play that you have no knowledge about. Our stories or our lifestyle should reflect the stories that we tell. If we say that we are people of innovation, it should reflect. If we say that we are people of resilience, it should reflect in our decisions, in our business, in our finance, everything, in every aspect of our lives. That resilience should reflect. if we are saying we are a people of peace, it should reflect in our ways of doing. If we are saying that we are people of love, it should reflect in our lifestyle and how we deal with people, how we deal with ourselves. You understand? Because if we are able to model that as a lifestyle in our societies, we wouldn't have to say much. Because the fastest way to teach someone something is to show them. And if the kids come up and they see us do it, we wouldn't have to say much. Because most of the time when they come up, when you give birth and they just look at what you are doing and they follow it. And that will make our job easier. And that is how we change the script to our own story. We cannot be saying this and be doing something different. We cannot be saying that we are proud of Africa, but then we tend to live in someone else's country, or when we get the money, we don't even feel like coming back home. Or you travel, you go and do whatever you want to do, you get the money, but you don't make any development in your schools, in the schools back home. You don't come and change anything back home. We need to let our lifestyle reflect the stories that we are telling. Because if they say that they are going to do this, or they are people of this, they do it. So we need to do the same. And that is how we change the script to our story. It should be part of us, because these stories are not stories of someone else. It is our own stories. And it's the stories of the way people lived. So if we say that we are this and we don't, it doesn't reflect in our lifestyle, then what are we doing? We are lying to ourselves. And that's why they can tell us lies for us to believe it. That you see all this prosperity around you, all the riches around you, all the resources around you that they see, but they tell you you are poor and you believe it. That is a problem. You understand? So these are things that I think that we need to do. A few things. You might, if you have any ideas, you can share it in the comment section. Okay, so that we share ideas of how we can do this, because this needs to be done. The world is changing. We need to change with it. Else things are going to get worse. They are planning just like they did before, and they are planning now, and we need to be vigilant. You understand? We need to be vigilant. So I think that what the president of Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, I don't know if I'm saying it right, is doing is fantastic, because he's changing it. He's changing the script. You see that when he came, he changed the attire of all these government officials, the way they do things, everything, the languages they use, everything. And he's speaking the language of strength, not the language of fear, because there is one video of his that I will react to in the next video, that we will talk about it, the fear that is crippling Africa. Because I've seen it from his talk and all the things that we've been saying. We can see that it's just fear that we feel. What he's doing is fantastic, and we need to be proud of it. And all other head of states in other countries, Ghana, Nigeria, Uganda, Ethiopia, all these places, Kenya, should take up the cause and do the same, because there is strength in numbers. That is what is going to help us. That is going to give us a foot. That is going to give us, that strength, so that we will know that we can stand a chance of changing things, of making things better. So once again, thank you for watching. And if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, like the video, and share it to a friend. Okay. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.